really enforce or rule. We can't enforce the covenants. So as legal stated, we can discuss those in our deliberations, but we cannot enforce them. Thoughts, commissioners?
Well, I think it's the sort of the typical scenario with an Airbnb in an established neighborhood. So, you know, I'm certainly conscious of both sides. Someone wanting to get some return for an investment they've made, but also neighbors that live there. I do think just from the standpoint of the covenants, and I was going to ask the question whether or not we had any responsibility to enforce. I was pretty sure we didn't, but you know, I've asked realtors before in similar covenants about the business piece, and of course this was written in 1991. Airbnb didn't exist, wasn't thought of, and also back then and even today, that's really geared toward, you know, a room being turned into a beautician's or a mechanic working on cars in the driveway. So typically that's why they're in there, at least back then. So, and the reason I ask about, you know, long-term rentals versus short-term is because you can find articles that support either position as a benefit or a negative for the neighborhood. I mean, if you get a long-term renter in and they are a problem, then they're there for a year. Mm-hmm. A short-term renter that's a problem, you know, if the police aren't called, then they're there for 2 or 3 days. So I get that there's the trade-offs there, and I understand the concerns, and I'm not at all dismissing them from the homeowners. But it's just that it's always that friction, you know, for an Airbnb. So not a great answer, but.
In the best of all scenarios, I would think it would be where you could dictate certain areas of the city that are primarily rental to be open to being developed as short-term rentals, as opposed to neighborhoods that are primarily owner-occupied. I think college towns and, as I've read, mountain resort towns have a real problem now with dwellings, housing stock being used for short-term rentals and causing the rents to escalate so people can't live there who actually are teachers, policemen, city employees, people who work in the service industry. Now, obviously, we haven't reached that point in Stillwater, but we do have a issue with availability of reasonable housing costs for owner-occupied people. But we're not going to solve that here. But I just want to mention that as an issue that I can see with short-term rentals and availability of housing stock. I don't know really how, as a commission, we can say, no, you can't have a short-term rental here without some kind of legal issue or very clear and present danger to the integrity of the neighborhood. So it's hard to balance that between what the current owner says about what they want to do to control the environment in the house. So all that rambling being said, I don't know that there's an easy answer to this at all. And we will continue to deal with this in the future, I'm afraid.
The reason I ask about the rate is because that does change the clientele. So I think that helps. I am concerned about it is the front house onto 19th, and I don't know how you, even if you have it in the covenants in the Airbnb, I don't know how you keep somebody from parking on the street. It seems like that's probably going to happen. So what? I mean, is the city's not going to come enforce that? Will they? if a neighbor calls and says, hey, they're not supposed to be parking here on the street.
So I think when we've dealt with other requests like this, and we've talked to the property manager, the property manager has said that they were the ones, like if there's a party going on and it's a no party rule, that the manager is the one that would be called and they would go deal with that situation. I would think it would be the same if there were people parking in the street and it's, no street parking, then I would think that whoever wanted to make the complaint would make that complaint to the property manager.
And just to be clear, that's the difference between a house rule and a city ordinance. I do not believe there's any city ordinance prohibiting street parking in this neighborhood. That's a house rule, I believe she stated. So that is a difference.
So it would not be the police's responsibility, the city's responsibility to enforce that.
Just as if as a resident parked in the street, they would be able to.
Right.
The city would not remove them. And this is a yearly application, if I'm correct, Jackie? I believe so. I believe it's a yearly application that it's reviewed yearly. So if there are issues, that could be documented.
So I'll have to defer to staff rather than the audience to ask, is it a 1-year renewal?
Yes, it's a 1-year renewal.
It's a 1-year renewal.
Yep.
I'm pretty confident. I read it before I came in here.
Okay.
It was a 1 year.
All right. We're gonna go with legal and with staff's opinion on this.
It also states in the ordinance, if they're in violation of ordinances over the time, the permit can be pulled and come back to the planning commission as well.
Okay. Well, I'll also add that from the demand side, and having been someone who's rented an Airbnb when I'm traveling with my family, it's nice to have those options in areas that you feel like you're amongst other families. It's nice to have a little bit more space, particularly if you're in town for a family reunion or a wedding, or maybe something not as happy with a family business or something, but sometimes it's nice to have those opportunities to do that. And honestly, I haven't looked in Stillwater to see kind of what the market is for Airbnb here. So I'm not really sure if there was a comment made that there are a lot of kind of smaller Airbnbs closer to campus, so kind of that 2-bedroom. I don't know if having something that's a little bit larger further out is a good market demand or not. I suppose you'll find out quickly with your rates if it is. So I do know there's a demand.
Well, sort of in agreement with Mike that, there's no foothold to say no, so I think I would make a proposal that we approve the application.
So I have a motion to approve the application. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. We shall now vote.
Good luck.
Mine's acting up.
Mm-hmm. All of hers are blinking.
Mm-hmm.
So if the voting software is not going to work, we will take a verbal roll call. Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes.
Mr. Prather,
Yes. Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. Next item on the agenda is a map amendment MA 2209, and we'll hear from staff.
All right, the next item on the agenda is for a map amendment at 1122 and a portion of 1222 Southwestern from office to commercial shopping. Here's an area map of the subject property. The subject properties are located at and near the intersection of Southwestern Road and West 12th Avenue. Here's an aerial view. The subject properties located next to West Haven Nursing Home, which is across the street there on the corner here. And then to the northeast is a office business strip with offices, and then also Glow and Salon Spa. Here is a street view, 1222 Southwestern, looking west off Western. Here's a zoning map of the subject properties. The subject properties are currently zoned office. 1222 Southwestern has 2 zoning districts, agriculture in the back half and office in the front portion near Western. The back portion is located in the floodway, so that is why it's currently zoned agriculture, and you'll see later it's proposed to stay agriculture for that reason. Office zoning is located to the south and east, with residential to the north and the west. CS zoning is located in the immediate area. This slide contains the images of the future land use map of the 2030 comprehensive plan. Future land use maps are used to forecast desired uses in the community at the time of the comprehensive plan adoption. The subject properties are proposed to be commercial as part of the southwestern commercial corridor. To the west is high density from 1122, as you can see, and then agriculture for 1222. I believe Diego is here representing Ghost and Associates for the applicant. If you have any questions for him at this time, do you have questions for staff?
I do. I just want to make sure I heard correctly. On this lot, you, you said, excuse me, the rear part of the lot that is currently zoned agricultural will stay that way due to the fact it's in the floodplain, correct?
Yes, because it's basically undevelopable unless they decide
Right.
to do something in the future with a Lomar. There's other processes that it could be, but most likely we're suggesting it to stay agriculture.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, at this time, the applicant's representative would like to come forward and offer any insight to the commission. That would be greatly appreciated.
As she said, my name is Diego Enzensberger. I'm with Ghost & Associates, 113 East 8th Avenue. Yeah, we're requesting the map amendment. Currently, the comprehensive plan calls for commercial, and our request is to elevate that by 1 district, adding personal storage, warehousing, and retail. So, yeah, just elevating it by 1 district. Across the street is that same zoning, commercial shopping.
Any questions for the applicant? We don't have any questions. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that would like to speak in favor of this item? Would you like to speak in favor? Yes, I would. Please come forward. You can state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Walter Kelly at 1320 West 9th Avenue. Yes, I would like to speak in favor of this. 1222 Southwestern is a piece of property my father and granddad purchased in 1973 when I was 2 years old. And it's been in the family a long time. There used to be a house on it that my wife and I brought our 2 daughters home from Stillwater Medical Center to live in, and that was in 2000. And we have about 15 years ago we rezoned it. The house that was on that property was sold to my ex-brother-in-law and moved off. We hired Ghost & Associates to do a lot of engineering work on the property. I used Steve Ripley. I was granted an earth change permit about 15 years ago, and we did around $30,000 worth of dirt work to the property. the city came in and widened 12th Street from, or Western rather, from 12th Street to 19th, and we granted a small easement there to improve the sidewalk and the light for the, the community of Stillwater. And let's see, what else did we do? I applied for a FEMA map revision and had Jimmy Hill do the engineering work on that, and we were approved for that, with the ability to add a little bit more dirt later should we decide to do more engineering and more earth change permits. And so anyway, we got it to the point it is right now, or rather, about 7 years ago, Helen Shattuck, who was my neighbor to the north that has that 0.73 acre lot that's listed as 1122, she passed away, and my mom and I purchased the property from her estate, and then did a lot of cleanup over there and clearing some trees. And that was also, Ms. Shattuck had already rezoned it commercial office when we purchased it. We tore down the old house that was pretty dilapidated and hauled all of that off. I've been paying taxes on it for a long time. I try and mow it and keep it really nice. And I just feel like we would like to elevate that zoning. It'd be, obviously we want to maximize our ability to gain a nice long-term commercial lease that would benefit the citizens of Stillwater and benefit us, and make that area to follow the intent of the 2030 corridor that the city of Stillwater has proposed, which strangely enough we're less than 7 years away from. And so anyway, that's I just think it's a kind of a logical move. The traffic count is really high through there. You have Fountain Square that has a ton of traffic and a ton of commercial shopping. It's you have the South Campus of Stillwater Medical Center. You have there's a lot of utility. I think the city of Stillwater is working with OG&E to bring power down through there, through 12th Street, and tie a bunch of substations together. I think it's the logical move for Stillwater and for us. So I don't know what else to say about it. If you have any questions, I can tell you more.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Well, this is probably rather obvious, but so upzoning from office to commercial shopping increases the viability of the property in terms of selling it and developing it?
Yeah, I don't have any intention of selling it, but I would like to attract maybe a more lucrative, like commercial open display type of a lease. Long term, I want to retain the property and keep it, keep it nice. I'd like to pass it along to my children someday. So.
Okay.
But I want to make something that's nice that people will enjoy in Stillwater and keep the area, a place where people would like to shop. People would like to walk down to Babcock Park and have something to do on the way. I think it fits kind of the plans that I've seen so far for Stillwater, at least the ones that I've been privy to. I'm not that important, so I don't know everybody's plans, but everybody seems to want to have better bike paths and better parks and better shopping in Stillwater, and I kind of want to just contribute to that with 1222 and 1122 Southwestern.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there anyone else this evening in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this item? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience this evening that would like to speak in opposition of this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll ask staff to give us your findings and alternatives.
All right, so the findings: the Land Development Code allows for the rezoning of land via map amendments. The proposed commercial shopping zoning district is located nearby to the east. The comprehensive plan calls for commercial in this area. All right, so alternatives, accept findings and recommend that the city council approve the proposed map amendment as presented. Find that the map amendment is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts to the surrounding vicinity, and do not recommend that the city council approve the map amendment. Find that the additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation, and table the request to a certain date.
Thank you. Commissioners? Thoughts, discussion? Motion?
I move that we accept staff findings and recommend the city council approve the proposed map amendment as presented.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve. We shall now vote.
They're not in sync, so
Yeah.
again, I'm not really sure what's going on. So again, a verbal roll call, please. Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes.
Mr. Prather,
Yes.
motion passes 3-0.
Next item on the agenda is specific use permit, SUP 22-07, and we will hear from staff.
Yes, thank you. All right, for the last item tonight, presenting is a electronic messaging center sign next to residential zoning district located at 2121 North Perkins. Here's an area map of the subject property. It's the northeast corner of North Perkins and Knotts Avenue. Here's the area map of the subject property. Atwoods is located to the north. Olive Garden is located to the west across Perkins. Cowboy Town Apartments is to the south across Knotts. Here's a Google Street View looking east off of North Perkins. Subject property is zone commercial shopping with similar zoning surrounding the property except to the south, which is RTM. EMC signs are allowed in CS zoning but are required for an SUP when the subject property is adjacent to the residential zoning. Here is the 2030 comprehensive plans, future land use map of the subject property. The forecasted use for this location at the time of the comprehensive plan was adopted was commercial use along North Perkins corridor. I believe the applicant is here. If you have any questions for them, and at this time, do you have questions for staff?
Any questions for staff? Thank you. So if the applicant would like to come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Joe Klein. My address is 2325 Richland, Enid, Oklahoma. I'm gonna be the lucky guy to get to install this if you approve this. Tommy Car Wash put one of these in Enid. I installed that one. They produce a nice sign, a nice EMC. They keep it up. They don't let it get ratty. And the nice thing about EMCs is that they can eliminates other needs of advertising, like banners or feather banners, to promote their specials. So that's and this is part of their image, and they've been installing these all over the state. So we hope you'll give us a sup. Have any questions?
Any questions from the commissioners?
What does EMC stand for?
Excuse me, Electronic Message Center.
Okay.
This is LED full color.
Okay.
It's a real nice unit. And by the way, my son stayed in those apartments when he was getting his bachelor's degree here at OSU. I don't think they mind if there's one across the street.
Any other questions?
What is the proposed height of the sign?
I believe 20 feet. I'd have to go look at the drawing to be sure.
That's what it shows on the drawing.
Yeah. And overall, square footage wise, the MC is a small part of the sign.
Any other questions for the applicant? No, we don't have any. Thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, I would ask if there's anyone else in the audience that is in favor of this item. Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience this evening that is in opposition of this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask staff to return to present findings and alternatives.
All right, the findings. The Land Development Code allows for this type of signage with an SUP. The proposed sign is an accessory use within an existing commercial development. Car wash is the planned primary commercial use of the property. Alternatives: accept findings and recommend that the City Council approve the proposed specific use permit as presented. Find that the specific use is not an appropriate use for the property based upon the impacts of the surrounding vicinities, and do not recommend that the City Council approve the request. Find that the additional information or discussion is needed prior to making a recommendation, and table the request to a certain date.
Thank you. Commissioners, any discussion or perhaps a motion?
Well, since I've been on the commission, we haven't had one of these. And so my assumption is, given that it has to do with being close to a residence, that the concern is there might be an annoyance with the lights and LEDs, but no one was here to speak in opposition, so.
So I know when we've had these in the past, one of the things that often concerns me is it going to be a distraction to a driver? But there's really nothing in law that states that it can't be within a certain distance of any kind of speed of traffic or any intersection. So there's really nothing that would pertain to that necessarily that we could base an opinion on. So, and as was included in our packet, it's a 30 square foot sign. So it's not really that large for the setback from the road. And I think the overall sign was in excess of 160 square feet, so it's kind of small based on the whole sign. And again, it's 20 feet tall, so it's not really, it's like a whole billboard up there or something. So.
Yeah.
Well, the other issues that are brought forward for these message centers has been what hours of night it'll be operational. But since this isn't really near a neighborhood, although maybe you call the apartment complex neighborhood, I don't know. But if without anyone raising an issue with that from the
Apartment complex.
public, I don't know that we should really consider that to be a nuisance.
I would agree with your assessment.
Well, I would make a motion that we approve the application.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the application. We shall now vote.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes.
Mr. Proctor,
Yes.
motion passes 3-0.
Next item on the agenda is presentation by Special Counsel of the City Attorney's Office regarding state statutes, the Stillwater Code of Ordinances, the zoning code, and cases of interest on planning and zoning matters.
Commissioners, I have one case thought bring you some interest. It's a City of Edmond case in which the Planning Commission denied approval of a preliminary plat. They provided the following reasons, and this is important for later on. They stated that the proposed subdivision was too dense, made no provision for appropriate transition and buffer for the surrounding neighborhoods, lacked amenities, failed to address preservation of the remnant forest on the property, and was not compatible with the area. The defendant claimed that this decision was arbitrary and capricious. They claimed that because city staff recommended approval and found that they were in compliance with all ordinances, that the Planning Commission had to approve the preliminary plat. This went through the court system, and the court ultimately decided that it was not arbitrary and capricious. They stated the planning commission can use subjective reasoning for denial, and the court also reviewed the minutes and reviewed the reasoning, stated it was not arbitrary and capricious. So the takeaway from this is your reasoning for denials is very important, and that they are documented.
Okay.
That's all.
That wasn't where I thought you were going to go with that one, so it's surprising. Okay.
Just a short and sweet one for you
Yeah, I
tonight.
like that. Great. Next item on the agenda is miscellaneous items from staff, planning commissioners, or the city attorney for discussion and possible action. The one item we have listed is that the next planning commission meeting will be August the 2nd. Last item on the agenda is adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. We shall now vote.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan?
Yes.
Mr. Prather?
Yes.
We stand adjourned.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
I vote no just for the fun of it. 2-1.
You just want to